Clinic economics. The numbers, systems, and decisions that matter for physiotherapy clinics, published by HMDG. Introduction. This is an operating system for running a profitable private physiotherapy clinic. It is opinionated, it takes positions. Where those positions are backed by data, we show the data. Where they're backed by experience across 800 plus clinics, we say so. Where we're making a judgment call, we tell you that too. Every benchmark in this book comes from 715 UK clinic owners, surveyed between August and November 2025 for the UK Private Practice Barometer. If you're starting out, read chapters 1 to 5 first. They cover economics, capacity, retention, pricing, and patient flow. Then read chapter 15, compliance, before you spend money on growth. Getting the foundations wrong is expensive. If someone is trying to sell you something, read chapter 7, marketing traps, before you spend a penny. If the person selling can't answer questions with numbers, walk away. If you're stuck at a plateau, read chapter 10, the scale blueprint, and chapter 12, failure modes. You'll probably recognize yourself in at least one failure mode. That's fine. Everyone does. If you're already running well, skip to chapter 16, the operating system, and use it as your review framework. Weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual. Everything connects back to the core equation in chapter 1. The 10 numbers that run a physiotherapy clinic. If you know these 10 numbers, you can make good decisions. If you don't, you're guessing. Number 1, utilization percentage. The industry benchmark is 72.3%. You calculate it as booked slots divided by available slots times 100. Number 2, wait time. The benchmark is 2 days, median. You calculate it as the number of days between the inquiry and the first available slot. Number 3, new patient bookings per week. There's no fixed benchmark, it's simply the count of initial appointments booked that week. Number 4, booking conversion rate. No fixed benchmark, calculated as bookings divided by inquiries times 100. Number 5, rebooking rate. The physiotherapy average is 73.3%, calculated as patients who rebook divided by patients seen times 100. Number 6, sessions per episode. The median is 5.0, calculated as total sessions divided by total unique episodes. Number 7, DNA, did not attend, and cancellation rate. With reminders in place, the benchmark is 6.3%. Calculated as DNAs plus late cancellations divided by total booked times 100. Number 8, revenue per patient, roughly £315 to £330 as an illustrative planning estimate based on 5.0 sessions at a blended rate of £63 to £66. Your actual figure depends on your initial to follow-up mix and pricing. Number 9, CAC, cost per patient acquisition. The median is £25, calculated as marketing spend divided by new patients acquired. Number 10, revenue per clinician, £70,871, where admin support is strong, calculated as total revenue divided by full-time equivalent clinicians. Why revenue per patient is on this list instead of average fee? Average fee is a component, revenue per patient is the outcome. It maps directly to the core equation, patients times sessions times price. If you only track the fee, you're looking at one piece and ignoring the multiplier. Only 25.8% of clinics in the barometer track their CAC. Those clinics have a median revenue of £327,500. The ones that don't, £200,000. The gap is £127,500. Knowing your numbers doesn't generate revenue on its own, but the kind of owner who measures acquisition costs tends to make better decisions everywhere else. Chapter 1, How Physiotherapy Clinics Actually Make Money. Worth reading properly before you go any further. The equation. Revenue equals patients times sessions per episode times price per session. Profit equals revenue minus the sum of fixed costs and variable costs. Everything your clinic does either moves one of those variables or it doesn't. If it doesn't, stop doing it. If you can't explain which variable something is moving, you probably shouldn't be doing it. The 4 levers. The equation gives you 4 levers to pull. Demand, new patients entering the system, how they find you, what needs to be in place for them to book, and what doesn't work. Conversion, the journey from inquiry to booking to attendance to follow-up. Every step in that chain leaks patients, your website, your phone handling, your booking process, and your speed of response. Retention, sessions per episode, and rebooking rate. Most clinics lose money after the first appointment and don't realize it. Pricing, what you charge relative to your capacity and demand. Most clinics are underpriced and most clinic owners are scared to raise fees. Most owners spend 80% of their time and money on lever one, demand, and neglect the other three. Fixing conversion, retention, and pricing is almost always cheaper and faster than generating more demand. The perishable inventory problem. A physiotherapy clinic sells time. A 30-minute slot at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday that nobody books is gone forever. You can't store it, you can't sell it tomorrow, you can't discount it retrospectively. Same problem Ryanair has with empty seats. Once the plane takes off, that seat is worth nothing. Capacity management matters more than almost anything else you do. The clinic economics map. This is the model the entire book returns to. The flow runs in this order. Demand, meaning new inquiries, then booking conversion, driven by call handling, website, and speed, then attendance, driven by DNA rate, wait time, and reminders, then rebooking, driven by clinician quality and communication, then sessions per episode, driven by treatment plans and follow-up systems, then revenue per patient, driven by pricing time sessions, then revenue per clinician, driven by utilization and admin support, and finally, clinic margin, driven by costs, staffing model, and pricing. 4 overlays sit across that whole flow. Pricing affects conversion, revenue per patient and margin, capacity and utilization affect attendance, wait time, and scale. Admin support affects conversion, rebooking, and revenue per clinician. And finally, service mix affects revenue quality, margin, and referral patterns. When something is going wrong in the clinic, this map tells you where to look. Low revenue per patient, check sessions per episode and pricing. Low attendance, check DNA rates and your wait time. Low margin, check your cost structure and staffing model. The stages of a physiotherapy clinic. Clinics go through 5 predictable stages, each with different economics, challenges, and priorities. First stage, solo, typically just the owner, treating over 90% of patients. The key challenge is that everything depends on you. Second stage, early team, 2 to 5 staff. The owner treats, manages, markets, and does admin. This is the danger zone, pay dips, and workload peaks. Third stage, growth, 6 to 10 staff. The owner is partially treating, partially managing. The challenge is ambiguity, neither fully clinical nor fully CEO. Fourth stage, multi-clinician, 11 or more staff. The owner is primarily managing. Systems and culture become critical. Fifth stage, CEO. Staff numbers vary and the owner takes under 10% of revenue from their own treating. This stage has the most freedom but the lowest margin. Higher revenue doesn't automatically mean higher owner pay. In the barometer, solo owners taking over 90% of revenue from their own treating have a median pay of £36,000 at a 37.4% margin. Early team owners, £45,000. Growth stage, £60,000. Multi-clinician, £82,500. CEO stage owners taking under 10% of revenue from their own treating, £71,000 at an 18.3% margin. The early team phase is where you work hardest for least reward. Solo clinicians keep the most margin, but there's a ceiling on how much one person can earn treating patients, so the absolute pay stays low. CEO stage owners have the most freedom because the business runs without them, but that infrastructure costs money and the margin reflects it. Revenue distribution. Most physiotherapy clinics are small businesses. In the barometer, 56% turn over between £100,000 and £500,000. The typical respondent turns over roughly £300,000. Only 5.3% exceed £1 million. The typical clinic has revenue around £300,000, a small team, and an owner who's still treating most of the patients. There's nothing wrong with that if it's deliberate. The problems start when an owner wants to grow but doesn't understand the economics of the stage they're in, or when they're stuck in the early team danger zone without a plan for getting through it. Chapter 2, Capacity First. Most clinics think they have a marketing problem. They don't. Before you go spending money on ads, redesigning your website, or hiring people, look at your diary. Most physiotherapy clinics are leaking 20 to 40% of their revenue from the diary alone. They have got enough patients, but the diary is badly built and no one's looked at it properly in years. Utilization. Utilization is the single most important number in your clinic. More important than revenue, more important than patient volume. It tells you whether the clinic is actually working before you start blaming the marketing. Here's where UK clinics sit by size. The industry average is 72.3%. One-room clinics average 66%. 2 to 3-room clinics average 68%. 6 to 10-room clinics average 71%. Clinics with 10 or more rooms average 75%. 70 to 80% is where you want to be. Below 70% and you're leaving money on the table, slots are sitting empty, and fixed costs are eating into your margin. Above 80%, wait times spike, patient experience gets worse, and you start running hot. Wait times climb sharply with utilization. At 50 to 70% utilization, the average wait time is 2.6 days, the baseline. At 70 to 80%, it rises to 3.9 days, up 48%. Above 80%, it jumps to 5.5 days, up 106% on the baseline. Patients don't hang around, they go somewhere else. It's the same as a restaurant. At 70% full, it runs well. At 95%, the kitchen is backed up, people are waiting for a table, staff are frazzled, and some customers just leave. So, where do you sit? Below 65% utilization is a red zone, fixed demand or diary structure, and don't hire or spend on marketing until the diary itself is sorted. 65 to 70% is amber, review your booking flow, marketing channels, and slot mix. Something is leaking. 70 to 80% is green, stay here, monitor weekly, protect it. Above 80% is red again, raise prices or higher, because if you do neither, wait times will punish you. Both ends of the scale are red for a reason. If you're below 65%, the temptation is to throw money at ads. Don't. Check whether your diary structure is the problem first, because it usually is. If you're above 80% and haven't raised prices in the last 12 months, you're working harder than you need to for less than you should earn. Diary design. Your diary structure caps your revenue before a single patient walks in. On initial versus follow-up ratios, too many initial slots without having the follow-up capacity, and patients churn out. Too few initial slots, and you starve the pipeline. If your average episode is 5 sessions, roughly 20% of your slots should be initials and 80% follow-ups. On slot length, 30 minutes for a standard follow-up, 45 to 60 for an initial. A clinician running 60-minute follow-ups sees 25% fewer patients than one running 45-minute slots. On clustering, group appointment types together, scattered gaps are too short to fill with another appointment and too long to ignore. They just sit there quietly, costing you money. On peak time protection, 8 to 9 a.m. and 5 to 7 p.m. are gold. These are the slots working people can actually attend. Don't fill them with admin time or low-value appointments. The empty chair system. An unfilled slot within 48 hours becomes much harder to fill. Someone needs to own this every week, 7 days out. Check the diary every Friday for the following 2 weeks. Any day below 70%, check your wait list and send availability to recent inquiries who haven't booked. 3 days out, reach out to lapsed patients with a simple text. We have a slot available Thursday afternoon. Would you like to book? These are people who already know and trust you. 1 day out, offer the slot to existing patients as an extra session. Same day, accept it and focus on tomorrow instead of trying to fill a 2 p.m. slot at 11 a.m. It has to be systematic, the same triggers, the same routine every week. Forecasting. Look forward, not backward. Every Friday, check the next 2 weeks. If utilization is trending below 70%, act now. Watch for signs of a quiet week coming. Fewer inquiries than normal, a higher cancellation rate, a new clinician whose diary hasn't ramped yet, school holidays approaching, or December and August. Therapist performance variance. The average physio rebooking rate is 73.3% in the barometer, but within a single clinic, the spread between the best and worst clinician is often 15 to 25 percentage points, one physio rebooking at 85%, another at 60%, with everything else about the clinic the same. A clinician rebooking at 60% is losing 4 out of every 10 patients after a single session. At £63 per follow-up and a target of 5 sessions per episode, that's roughly £250 in lost revenue per patient who doesn't come back. Don't turn this into a targets conversation. No league tables, no KPI exercises. Track rebooking by clinician monthly. Flag anyone consistently below 65% and have a development conversation. DNA and cancellation management. Every DNA did not attend is a slot you can never sell again. 2 things halve your DNA rate: automated reminders and managing the booking window. Without automated reminders, the DNA rate is 11%. With them, it drops to 6.3%. Booking 3 to 7 days ahead gives an optimal DNA rate of around 6.2%. Booking more than 3 weeks ahead nearly triples that to around 16%. So, turn reminders on, rebook at point of care within the next 7 to 14 days, avoid booking more than 2 weeks out where possible, and publish a cancellation policy with a 24-hour notice minimum. Chapter 3: Retention and Patient Value. The cheapest patient is the one already in your system. Most clinics hemorrhage value after the first appointment and don't even realize it. Sessions per episode. The difference between 4 and 6 sessions at £63 per follow-up is £126 per patient. Across 20 new patients a week, that's over £130,000 a year from the same patients at the same prices. Most clinics don't even track this number. The barometer median is 5.0 sessions per episode. The top quarter do 6 or more, the bottom quarter do 4 or fewer. The fix is simple. Communicate clearly in session 1. Tell the patient what's wrong, what the plan is, how many sessions it's likely to take, and what better looks like. Rebooking. 1 in 4 patients walks out after a single session and never comes back. The barometer puts the average physio rebooking rate at 73.3%. That 26% churn is expensive, given you've already paid to acquire that patient at a median CAC of £25, and your clinician has spent 45 to 60 minutes on the initial assessment. 3 things fix this: rebook at point of care before the patient leaves, automate follow-up for people who don't rebook. The barometer shows clinics with automation rebook at 74.2% versus 71.6% without, and track rebooking by clinician. Lapsed patient reactivation. People who've already been to your clinic are the easiest patients to convert. A simple reactivation sequence. At 3 months after last visit, a check-in, how's the knee? We're here if you need us. At 6 months, a reminder that it's been a while. At 12 months, a seasonal prompt. The conversion rate drops the longer someone's been away, so the 3-month touch point is the most valuable. Lapsed patient reactivation is the 3rd highest value channel after Google and your existing patients, and costs almost nothing to run. Patient experience that actually matters. What actually matters: how quickly someone can get an appointment, how clearly the clinician explains the plan, whether the patient feels confident in the person treating them, and how easy it is to book and pay. What doesn't matter as much as people think: the coffee machine, the waiting room plants, the fancy branding, and Instagram-worthy clinic photos. Chapter 4: Pricing. Pricing is a capacity and demand tool. If your diary is full and people are waiting, your prices are too low. If your diary is empty, your prices might be fine, but your demand is broken. What physiotherapy clinics actually charge. Across the physiotherapy respondents in the barometer, the median initial consultation fee is £74 and the median follow-up fee is £63. 81.6% charge an initial consultation premium. Regional variation is significant. London averages an initial fee of £84.22. The South East averages £71.45. The East of England averages £68.90. The South West averages £66.12. The West Midlands averages £64.50, the North West averages £63.15, the East Midlands averages £62.80, Yorkshire and Humber averages £61.45, Scotland averages £60.90, Wales averages £58.40, Northern Ireland averages £54.20. There's a £30 gap between London and Northern Ireland. What's less expected is how many clinics are charging below their own regional median while running at over 75% utilisation. If that's you, you are almost certainly underpriced. When to raise prices. 73.5% of clinics in the barometer raised prices in the last 12 months. 88.2% of £1 million plus clinics did. The median planned increase is 6%. The decision matrix: if utilisation is above 75%, wait time is over 5 days, and demand is strong, raise now by £5 to £10. If utilisation is above 75%, wait time is under 5 days, and demand is strong, raise moderately £3 to £5. If utilisation is 65 to 75% with moderate demand, hold and fix conversion first. If utilisation is below 65% with short wait times and weak demand, don't raise. Demand is the problem. Initial versus follow-up strategy. The initial consultation captures the patient. The follow-up is where most of the revenue actually comes from. Keep the gap between initial and follow-up modest. £5 to £15 is typical, and protect your follow-up pricing aggressively. 5 follow-ups at £63 is £315. The initial at £74 is 1 appointment. Service mix and revenue quality. A clinic running at 80% utilization filled with insurance patients at £45 a session has worse economics than one running at 70% with self-pay patients at £65. Premium modalities like Shockwave, priced at £50 to £80 per session, should be layered onto an already full diary, not bought to fix a quiet one. Insurance. The highest revenue clinics use insurance as a supplement, around 26% of revenue, with the remaining 67% self-pay at full fee. If PMI is more than 30% of your revenue, you're exposed to a rate or panel change you can't control. Prepaid packages. Don't sell them. The short version: packages mask poor retention, create accounting and consumer law risk, lock your pricing, and erode trust. Physiotherapy rebooking rate is 73.3% without packages. If yours is lower, the problem is clinical, not commercial. Chapter 5: Patient Flow. People cannot book with clinicians they cannot find. If you are a good clinician, making yourself findable is an ethical responsibility. Demand capture versus demand creation. Demand capture is intercepting someone who is already looking. They Google physiotherapist near me, they find you, they book. Demand creation is generating awareness in someone who isn't currently looking, such as social posts, leaflets, and sponsorships. For most physiotherapy clinics, capture is vastly more efficient. The referral channel hierarchy. Ranked by reliability and return. First, Google, both organic and paid. Every £1 million plus clinic in the barometer uses Google Ads versus 64% of clinics under £1 million. Second, existing patients through rebooking and word of mouth. Third, your community, sponsorships, and local presence, slow to build but hard to replicate. Fourth, your database, lapsed patient reactivation. Fifth, GP and consultant referrals, high trust but fragile. Sixth, insurance panels, volume with compressed margin. Seventh, everything else, social media, directories, leaflets, local press, is supplementary at best. Different marketing setups produce different results. A hybrid model combining agency and in-house has a median revenue of £300,000. Agency only £278,000, in-house staff only £197,500. Owner doing it all themselves £155,000. Word of mouth as a share of acquisition declines as clinics grow. 39.5% of new patients in clinics under £100,000 revenue versus 30.5% in clinics over £500,000. Search strategy. 3 things matter. 1. Condition and location pages written for patients, such as knee pain treatment in your town. 2. A claimed and verified Google business profile with regular photos and posts. And 3. Reviews. Ask for them, make it easy, and send a direct review link by text after the appointment. Paid ads. Marketing spend as a share of revenue falls as clinics grow, even as the absolute number rises. Clinics under £100,000 in revenue spend 11.2% of revenue on marketing, or about £515 a month. Clinics between 100 and 250,000 spend 7.35%, or about £963 a month. Clinics between 250 and 500,000 spend 5.09%, or about £1,397 a month. Clinics over 500,000 spend 4%, or about £3,259 a month. Median CAC is £25. Only 25.8% of clinics actually track it, and those that do have a median revenue of £327,500 versus £200,000 for those that don't. Conversion. Every extra click costs you patience. Make online booking visible on every page, make the phone number clickable, publish your fees, and respond to inquiries the same day. Chapter 6. Your digital foundation. Before you spend money on growth, make sure the basics actually work. Your website's job is to turn visitors into booked appointments. It must work properly on mobile, since over 70% of people will find you on their phone. Load in under 3 seconds. Have online booking and a clickable phone number visible on every page. Publish your fees and have individual condition pages for SEO. Google Business Profile. Claim it, verify it, set your primary category to physiotherapy clinic, add photos of the building, treatment rooms and team, keep hours accurate, and post at least weekly. A clinic with 85 reviews at 4.9 stars will outrank a clinic with 6 reviews at 5 stars almost every time. Google Analytics 4 and Search Console. GA4 tells you what's happening on your website. Install it on every page and configure events for booking completions, phone clicks, and form submissions. Search Console shows you what people are actually searching to find your site, and it's free. Google Tag Manager and call tracking. Tag Manager lets you track button clicks and form submissions without editing your website code every time. If a significant share of your bookings come by phone, call tracking services such as CallRail, MediaHawk, or ResponseTap let you attribute those calls to the channel that generated them. Practice management software. Our position, Clinico is the best practice management system for most private physio clinics because of its open API, which connects cleanly to your website, booking system, analytics, and automation tools. From day one, your system must handle online booking, GDPR-compliant patient records, automated SMS and email reminders, invoicing and payments, and basic reporting. Payments and accounting. Take payment at the point of care wherever possible. For accounting, use Xero, QuickBooks, or Free Agent, connect it to your bank, and reconcile monthly. Chapter 7. Marketing Traps and Industry Nonsense. This chapter exists to stop you wasting money on things that don't work, sold by people who've never run a physiotherapy clinic. The vulnerability window. New clinic owners are scared, cash poor, and desperate for patients, exactly the moment someone shows up promising 30 patients in 30 days. The people selling these systems have usually never run a physiotherapy clinic. False demand generation. Leads are not patients. A person searching physiotherapist near me needs to book an appointment, not be nurtured through a funnel. The actual patient journey is 4 steps: search, find you, book, attend. Patient avatars are a waste of time. Your avatar is a person in pain, local, who can afford treatment, and social media is not a primary acquisition channel for most physio clinics. Red flags for any marketing pitch. 1. They measure leads instead of bookings. 2. They offer lead magnets. 3. They use Facebook lead form ads instead of driving actual bookings. 4. They build nurture sequences instead of appointment flow, or they talk about warming up your audience. Discounting and first session free. Discounting trains patients to expect discounts. Cheap introductory offers attract price-sensitive patients who are less likely to complete treatment, and Groupon-style offers cause lasting reputational damage that takes years to shake off. Clinic growth coaches and masterminds. Watch for revenue claims without published evidence, testimonials from other coaches, rather than verifiable clinic owners, urgency tactics, and buzzwords like blueprint or done for you. The test is simple. Would their advice survive contact with the barometer data? If they can't answer questions about rebooking rates, utilization, or CAC with numbers, walk away. Prepaid packages. Don't sell them. They create a clinical problem by removing clinical reasoning from treatment decisions, a cultural problem by turning physiotherapists into salespeople, a trust problem as patients notice the shift from clinical assessment to sales pitch, and a financial problem since cash received upfront isn't earned revenue until sessions are delivered. How to evaluate any marketing spend? 5 questions to ask about everything you're spending money on. Can you track it to a booking? What's the cost per patient? What's the payback period? Would removing it reduce bookings? And is it capturing demand or creating demand? Chapter 8. Finance, Tax, and Cash Control. Most physiotherapists get 0 business finance training. That's why so many end up running blind. Understanding your P&L. Revenue going up doesn't mean you're making more money. It might mean your costs are going up faster. On a basic profit and loss statement, revenue is your total income from patient fees. Cost of sales covers associate and contractor payments. Gross profit is revenue minus cost of sales. Overheads cover rent, staff, marketing, software, insurance, and utilities. And net profit is what's left after everything. Margin by stage. Solo clinics run at about a 37.4% margin. CEO stage clinics, where the owner does less than 10% of the treating, run at about 18.3%. Margin compresses as you scale because staff, space, and systems costs hit before the revenue catches up. Cash flow. Revenue is not cash. Invoice promptly and chase weekly. Build a buffer of 3 to 6 months of fixed costs and set aside money for tax every month, 25 to 30% of profit for sole traders. VAT. Physiotherapy delivered by HCPC registered practitioners for therapeutic purposes is VAT exempt, but Pilates classes and sports massage delivered by non-HCPC registered staff can attract VAT if your taxable non-exempt supplies are approaching the VAT threshold, currently £90,000. Get specialist advice. Business structure. Sole trader status suits starting out and keeping things simple, taxed through income tax and national insurance, with unlimited personal liability. A limited company suits growing businesses with £50,000 or more in profit, taxed through corporation tax, then salary or dividends, with liability limited to company assets. Partnerships or LLPs suit co-owned practices, with liability shared or limited depending on structure. Pension. Personal pension contributions reduce your income tax bill, and if you operate through a limited company, employer contributions also reduce your corporation tax bill. Start now, even with a small amount. Chapter 9. Seasonality and Cash Planning. Demand is not flat, and the pattern repeats every year. The demand calendar. Physiotherapy peaks in March and October and troughs in December and August. On a net demand score, October scores plus 161, the peak of the year. March scores plus 143. January scores minus 24, net negative despite the new year, new me assumption. August scores minus 155. December scores minus 188, the deepest trough. What this means for your cash. Build reserves in October and March, your peak revenue months. Don't panic about December and August. They're quiet every year and will be next year too. Revenue lag matters more if you do a lot of insurance work, where a 30 to 60-day payment gap can make seasonal dips feel worse than they are. Marketing spend and timing. Increase ad spend 4 to 6 weeks before peaks. For an October peak, that means increasing budget in late August and September. So use the quiet troughs of December and August for internal projects and run lapsed patient reactivation in January and August when people are more likely to respond to a check-in. Chapter 10. The Scale Blueprint. Most clinic owners want to grow. Fewer understand what growth actually costs, what £1 million plus clinics look like. £1 million plus clinics average 10 full-time clinicians versus 1 in sub-1 million pound clinics. They average 12 rooms versus 3. They operate across 3 locations versus 1. They have 6 admin staff versus 1. Their initial fee averages £80 versus 70. Their follow-up fee averages £65 versus 55. Their margin runs at 17.5%, typically lower than smaller clinics. 82% have a written strategy versus 53% of sub-1 million pound clinics. 59% have a full-time practice manager versus 30%. 47% have a BI dashboard versus 22%. 100% use Google Ads versus 64%. 76% offer shockwave therapy versus 47%. 59% have an ultrasound scanner versus 23%. The strongest predictors of revenue in the data are room count, with a correlation of 0.58, admin staff at 0.52, clinical staff at 0.46, and number of locations at 0.40. Room count is the strongest single predictor. The infrastructure around the clinicians predicts revenue more than the clinicians themselves. The danger zone. The early team stage with 2 to 5 staff is where most growing clinics get stuck. Staff turnover peaks at 14% in the £500,000 to £1 million revenue band. The way through is systematizing before you scale further and planning your cash flow around the temporary margin compression. The practice manager inflection. 59% of £1 million plus clinics have a full-time practice manager versus 30% of sub-million clinics. The right time to hire one is typically around the 4 to 6 staff mark, when operational work starts consuming the owner. Clinical technology as a growth investment. 76% of the £1 million plus clinics offer shockwave therapy versus 47% of sub-1 million pound clinics, but the correlation runs from size to technology, not the other way round. Invest once utilization is consistently above 70%, you have trained clinicians to deliver it, and you can price it as a premium add-on. What scale actually requires? The suggested sequence: get utilization to 70 to 80%, then hire admin support before your next clinician. Then you can raise prices if utilization and demand support it. Go on to build your Google presence properly. Next, hire a practice manager when operational work is consuming the owner. Then add rooms or locations when physical capacity becomes the constraint. Lastly, invest in clinical technology once the fundamentals are solid. Chapter 11: Team, Recruitment and Structure. Hiring is one of the most expensive decisions a clinic owner makes. The hiring decision. The decision tree. Only consider hiring a clinician if utilization has been above 80% for 8 or more weeks. If wait times are also above 7 days and you already have adequate admin support and can fund the hire before they're profitable, hire the clinician. If admin support is inadequate, hire admin first. Revenue per clinician with good admin support is £70,871. Without it, £57,000, a gap of roughly £14,000 per clinician per year. Where to find physiotherapists? Useful channels include CSP jobs, Indeed, and NHS jobs, university partnerships that convert placements into hires, locum agencies as a trial period, referral bonuses from your existing team, and CSP events and local physio networks. What the market wants. Mid-level physios with 3 to 6 years of experience are the most sought after, with 95 mentions in the data versus 87 for junior and 39 for senior. Since everyone wants mid-levels, developing juniors into mid-levels internally is often the smarter play. PAYE versus contractor. Payee dominant clinics have a median revenue of £300,000 versus £230,000 for contractor dominant clinics. Payee costs more per head, covering national insurance, pension, and leave, but gives more control and better retention. Contractors cost less per hour, but are more transient and harder to integrate into clinic culture. Associate agreements. If using self-employed associates, get a written agreement covering fee structure. Room rental is generally preferable to a percentage split, and if using a percentage split, 50-50 should be the ceiling. Insurance for both parties. Mandatory HCPC registration, a notice period of 4 to 8 weeks, a non-compete clause, though limited in UK enforceability, clinical autonomy versus brand standards, and clear patient record ownership by the clinic. Admin as a revenue role. Admin isn't overhead, it's a revenue function. Phone handling, rebooking follow-up, cancellation recovery, and lapsed patient outreach all directly generate or protect revenue. Onboarding and turnover. A new physio with no onboarding takes 3 to 6 months to reach full productivity, with a proper onboarding process that can roughly be halved. On turnover, clinics outside London see 5 to 6%, London sees 9%, the 500,000 to 1 million band peaks at 14%, and £1,000,000 plus clinics stabilise around 9%. Clinics using bonus schemes see 14.4% turnover versus 10% for those that don't. Bonuses tend to be introduced after turnover is already high, rather than preventing it. Chapter 12: Common Failure Modes. You should recognize yourself in at least one of these. 1. Busy, but broke. The diary looks full, but there's nothing left at the end of the month, usually caused by underpricing, no margin analysis, and doing everything yourself instead of hiring admin support. The fix: review pricing, hire admin, and actually read your P&L. 2. Over-reliance on insurers. More than 40% of revenue from PMI, leaving you exposed to a rate or panel change. The fix: build your Google presence and shift the mix towards self-pay. £1,000,000 plus clinics run at roughly 26% insurance and 67% self-pay. 3. The danger zone stall. Revenue is growing while pay goes backwards, from scaling headcount without scaling systems. The fix: hire admin before your next clinician and build a 12-month financial plan. 4. Poor diary structure. The diary looks full, but revenue is lower than it should be due to scattered gaps and no slot templates. The fix: centralize diary management and protect peak hours. 5. Weak follow-up conversion. Plenty of new patients, but sessions per episode are stuck at 3 to 4, and rebooking is below 70%. The fix: rebook at point of care, set expectations in session 1, and automate follow-up for non-rebookers. 6. Random marketing spend. Money spread across channels with no way to tell what's working. The fix: track your CAC, set up conversion tracking, and consolidate spend on Google. 7. Hiring too early. A new clinician's diary is half empty 3 months in. The fix: don't hire until utilization has been above 80% for at least 8 consecutive weeks, and hire admin before the next clinician. 8. The bonus trap. A bonus scheme introduced to fix turnover that didn't actually fix it. The fix addressed workload, development, and management, the real reasons people leave. And finally, number 9, fell for a guru. Money spent on a growth system or mastermind with no measurable increase in bookings. The fix, redirect that budget to Google Ads with proper conversion tracking. Chapter 13, Owner Wellbeing and Exit. Well-being affects how you run the clinic. Exit planning determines whether you've built something someone would want to buy. Well-being by stage. The early team stage has the worst well-being in the dataset. On a 5-point scale, CEO stage owners taking under 10% of revenue from their own treating score 4.35. Solo owners taking over 90% of revenue from their own treating score 4.17. Growth stage owners with 6 to 10 staff score 4.02. Early team owners with 2 to 5 staff score lowest at 3.92. Solo owners often work longer hours, and other stages pay less in absolute terms. But the early team stage is where you're doing everything yourself with the least support. Clinical work, management, marketing, admin, HR, and finances, all running through one person with no practice manager and limited admin. You're neither a solo clinician with full control, nor a proper business owner with a team that runs itself. You're stuck in the middle, doing both badly, and it grinds you down. The fix is to commit to a direction. Either go back to solo with lower revenue but higher margin, more control and better well-being, or push through to the other side by hiring admin and systematizing properly. Utilization affects well-being too. At 70 to 80% utilization, well-being peaks at a score of 4.18. Above 80%, it declines to 4.09. Running too hot does the same thing to you as it does to wait times and patient experience. Leave. 39% of clinic owners in the barometer don't take adequate leave. If you're not taking proper leave, you already know it. And you probably have a list of reasons why it's impossible right now. Too busy, can't afford it, nobody to cover, patients will leave. Most of those reasons fall apart under scrutiny. If the clinic can't function without you for 2 weeks, the clinic has a structural problem that a holiday won't cause but will certainly reveal. Take the leave. The gender pay gap. Female clinic owners in the barometer earn £9,790 less than male clinic owners on average, a mean of £47,212 versus £57,002, a 17% gap. The data doesn't tell us why. It could be pricing differences, hours worked, clinic size, speciality mix, or a dozen other factors, but the gap exists and it's significant. If you're a female clinic owner, it's worth checking whether your pricing, your hours, and your business structure are where you actually want them to be. If your utilization is over 75% and you haven't raised your prices because you're worried about upsetting patients, you're letting emotion dictate your margin. The maths doesn't care about gender, price for the capacity you have. Exit planning. Most clinic owners don't think about exit planning until they're already tired. And by then, it's usually too late to build the kind of business someone would want to buy. In the barometer, 12% are planning to sell within 3 years, and the peak age for planning a sale is 55 to 64. What makes a clinic sellable? Revenue that doesn't depend on the owner. If you treat 80% of the patients and your name is the brand, there's nothing to sell. Documented systems that exist somewhere other than your head. Multiple clinicians, since a clinic with one clinician is a job, not a business. Clean financials with 3 years of proper accounts and no mixed personal and business expenses. And lease security, since a lease expiring soon with no renewal commitment is a risk no buyer wants to take on. Everything on that list also makes the clinic better to run right now. Building a sellable clinic and building a well-run clinic are the same exercise. If you're over 45 and haven't thought about this, start now. Chapter 14, Operational Leverage. Everything here assumes the foundations are already in place, a website that converts, an optimized Google business profile, analytics tracking bookings, practice management software with reminders turned on, and payments at point of care. If any of that isn't done yet, go back to Chapter 6. Automation that pays for itself. Most clinic automation falls into 5 categories. Appointment reminders. If you haven't turned these on yet, do it today. DNA rates drop from 11% to 6.3% with automated SMS and email reminders. Rebooking prompts. Automated follow-up for patients who don't rebook. SMS at 24 hours, email at 72 hours. Clinics with automation rebook at 74.2% versus 71.6% without. Review requests. Automated SMS after each appointment with a direct link to your Google business profile. This builds your review count consistently and directly affects your local search ranking. Lapsed patient reactivation, automated sequences at 3, 6, and 12 months after a patient's last visit. If your system can't trigger these automatically, a monthly manual send takes about 30 minutes and still works. Insurance invoice chasing. If you do insurance work, automated reminders for unpaid invoices at 14, 30, and 60 days. The test for any automation is simple. Does it save someone time, reduce errors, or improve a number you care about? If yes, add it. AI. AI in clinic operations is useful in a few specific places. Most of the hype around it doesn't apply to a physiotherapy clinic. Where it helps right now, clinical note-taking and transcription using a medical-grade, GDPR-compliant AI transcription tool. Never get a free public AI tool for this, since putting patient data into a public AI is a serious GDPR breach. This can recover 1 to 2 hours of clinician time a week. It also helps with patient communication templates, such as discharge summaries and GP letters drafted from your notes for review, and with reporting, pulling data from your system into monthly summaries. Where it doesn't help clinical decision-making, the technology isn't ready, the regulatory framework hasn't caught up, and the liability implications are serious. AI is good for admin tasks. It should stay well away from clinical judgment, dashboards, and reporting. You don't need a dashboard to run a good clinic. Plenty of successful clinics track their numbers on a spreadsheet and review it monthly. In the Barometer, 47% of £1 million+ clinics have a business intelligence dashboard versus 22% of sub-£1 million clinics. If you're just starting, a simple monthly spreadsheet tracking the 10 numbers from the front of this book is enough. If the clinic is growing and getting more complex with multiple clinicians, locations, or an insurance and self-pay mix, a proper dashboard becomes more useful. The annual audit. Every year, clinics accumulate tools, processes, and workflows that made sense at the time and now just add friction. The test for any tool or process in the clinic. Does it save clinician time, save admin time, reduce errors, or improve one of the 10 numbers? If it doesn't do at least one of those things, get rid of it. Do this audit once a year. Chapter 15. Compliance. Compliance won't give you an edge, but getting it wrong can end the business. HCPC registration. You must be registered with the Health and Care Professions Council to practice as a physiotherapist in the UK. Using the title physiotherapist without HCPC registration is a criminal offence. Registration needs renewing every 2 years, with continuing professional development requirements and a signed declaration confirming you meet the standards of proficiency. If you employ or contract other physiotherapists, check their registration every year. Insurance. You need several types of insurance, and missing any of them creates exposure that could end the business. Professional liability insurance covers claims arising from your clinical work. Every treating clinician needs this. Public liability insurance covers injury or damage to third parties on your premises. Employer's liability insurance is legally required if you employ anyone and must be at least £5 million. Contents and equipment insurance covers your clinical equipment and technology. Income protection covers your own income if you can't work due to illness or injury. Most clinic owners don't have this and should. Vicarious liability cover matters if associates treat patients under your clinic's name, since you may be liable for their clinical actions, even though they're self-employed. And finally, it's worth checking your policy covers everything you actually do. If you've added shockwave, dry needling, or acupuncture since you last checked, confirm they're covered. Data protection and GDPR. You hold sensitive patient data, which comes with legal obligations. Register with the Information Commissioner's Office, a legal requirement costing roughly £40 to £60 a year. Publish a clear privacy notice on your website and in the clinic. Make sure patient records are stored securely, ideally hosted in the UK or EU, with encryption and two-factor authentication where available. Put data processing agreements in place with any third party that processes patient data on your behalf. And have a breach plan written down in advance. You have 72 hours to report a significant breach to the ICO. Business structure. Make sure your business structure is properly registered, your tax affairs are in order, and you understand the liability implications of how you're set up. Sole traders need to register with HMRC for self-assessment. Limited companies need to register with Companies House and file annual accounts. Partnerships and LLPs should make sure the partnership agreement is documented. On VAT, physiotherapy by HCPC registered practitioners for therapeutic purposes is exempt, but watch out for non-exempt services like Pilates taught by non-HCPC staff, equipment sales, or fitness services outside a treatment plan, DBS checks. And if you work with children or vulnerable adults, you need an enhanced DBS check or the equivalent in Scotland, Wales, or Northern Ireland. Many insurance providers require it regardless. If you employ staff, decide whether DBS checks are required for their roles and get them done before they start. Premises and local authority. You need a health and safety risk assessment, a fire safety assessment, and first aid provision. Your premises need to comply with the Equality Act 2010 with reasonable adjustments for patients with disabilities. If you use sharps for acupuncture or dry needling, you need a clinical waste disposal contract, and some local authorities require a specific license for skin piercing activities. Check before you start offering these services. Quality regulators. Depending on where you operate and what services you offer, you may need to register with a quality regulator. In England, that's the Care Quality Commission. In Wales, Healthcare Inspectorate Wales. In Scotland, the Care Inspectorate. In Northern Ireland, the Regulation and Quality Improvement Authority. Most standalone physiotherapy clinics don't need registration, but if you're providing services within the regulated activities list, check carefully. Getting this wrong has consequences. Clinical governance. You need clinical policies and procedures in place, and you need to be able to show them if anyone asks. That includes a documented informed consent process, adequate record keeping in line with HCPC standards, an accessible complaints procedure with a defined response timeframe, a lone working policy if clinicians ever work alone in the building, and a cancellation policy that's fair, clearly communicated, and consistently applied, since terms that let you keep the full fee regardless of notice may be vulnerable under consumer law. Advertising standards. HCPC standards require that any advertising is accurate, doesn't mislead, and doesn't exploit patients' vulnerability, and claims about outcomes need to be evidence-based. If you make health claims in advertising, including on your website, they need to comply with the Advertising Standards Authority's CAP code. In practice, be accurate, don't overpromise, back up clinical claims with evidence, and don't use patient testimonials in ways that imply guaranteed outcomes. The compliance checklist. This next section is a checklist, so it's a lot to take in by ear alone. If you'd rather tick through it on paper, the full checklist is also available in the written version of this book on our website. This is just here for those who prefer reading, but the audiobook covers everything too. Compliance won't give you an edge, but getting it wrong can end the business. If you're starting a clinic, read this before you spend money on anything else. The checklist at the end is useful for clinics already running too. Review this annually and fix anything that isn't in place. HCPC registration for all clinicians, professional, public, and employers' liability insurance, contents and equipment insurance, income protection in place for the owner, vicarious liability covered if using associates, insurance scope covering all services offered, ICO registration, a published privacy notice, data processing agreements in place with all third-party processors, patient data stored securely, a documented data breach plan, business structure registered correctly, DBS checks completed where required, health and safety and fire safety assessments done, Equality Act compliance reviewed, a clinical waste disposal contract if applicable, local authority licenses obtained if applicable, quality regulator registration confirmed or exemption verified, a documented informed consent process, an accessible complaints procedure, a lone working policy if applicable, a published fair cancellation policy, and finally your advertising is compliant with HCPC and ASA standards. Chapter 16, the operating system. Most clinic owners check their numbers when something feels wrong. By the time you notice a problem from gut feel, it's usually been building for weeks. A proper review rhythm catches problems early while they're still cheap to fix. There are 4 reviews, weekly, taking 30 minutes, monthly, taking 60 minutes, quarterly, taking half a day, and annual, taking a full day. None of them are complicated. The hard part is doing them consistently. Weekly review. Do this every Friday, looking at this week and the next 2 weeks. Check utilization against the 70 to 80% target, both for this week and looking forward. Empty slots in the next 7 days and what fill actions you're taking. Your DNA and late cancellation count, targeting below 6.3%, inquiries received versus inquiries that booked, and rebooking rate, targeting above 73.3%. Active utilization is below 65% for the coming week by triggering the empty chair system. Act if any clinician is rebooking below 60% by flagging it for a development conversation. Act if your DNA rate is above 10% by checking whether reminders are actually working and whether your booking window has drifted too far out. This review should take 30 minutes. If it takes longer, your systems aren't giving you the data easily enough. Monthly review. Take the bigger picture, compare to the same month last year because of seasonality, check revenue against the same month last year, revenue per clinician targeting above £70,000 annualized with admin support, revenue per patient, sessions per episode targeting above 5.0, CAC against the £25 benchmark, marketing spend against bookings generated, your cash position and upcoming fixed costs, and patient feedback and complaints. Active sessions per episode fall below 4 by reviewing your rebooking process. Active CAC is rising without a corresponding rise in bookings by auditing your ads and website. Active revenue per clinician falls below £57,000 annualized by reviewing your admin support. Quarterly review. Step back and look at the business as a whole. Review your 3 quarterly priorities from the one-page strategy and work out why anything hasn't moved. Remove anything you're doing that isn't improving one of the core numbers. Check your utilization trend as a 3-month rolling average. Run a pricing review using the Chapter 4 decision matrix. Look at clinician performance variance and staff turnover. Review which marketing channels are actually generating bookings. Run through the Chapter 11 hiring decision tree. Plan for the season ahead. Check whether your self-pay and insurance mix has shifted, and check your financial health, margin, reserves, tax position, and cash flow forecast. Annual review. Block a full day once a year with no patients and no admin. Do a full P&L review and check where the money went compared to last year. Check your owner pay against the stage benchmarks from Chapter 1. Update your one-page strategy with new priorities and decide what you're going to stop doing. Run through the compliance checklist for insurance, HCPC, ICO, and policies. Consider a fee increase. The barometer benchmark is a 6 to 7.8% annual increase, and if you haven't raised prices, you've given yourself a pay cut in real terms. Revisit exit planning if it applies to you. Audit your tech and foundations to check that your website and tracking are still working, and you haven't accumulated tools you're not using, and check your own well-being and leave. Did you take enough time off? And are you going to next year? The weekly review is the foundation. If you miss those, problems build up quietly. The monthly and quarterly reviews catch the bigger trends. The annual review is where you step back and make the decisions that shape the next year. Most clinic owners do none of these consistently. If you do them, you'll spend a lot less time firefighting and a lot more time making decisions based on actual numbers. Appendix A, the barometer dataset. The UK Private Practice Barometer 2026 was published by HMDG in early 2026. The dataset covers 715 UK MSK clinic owners surveyed between August and November 2025, collected through an online survey distributed via HMDG channels, professional networks, and clinical associations. All UK regions are represented, with the largest samples from the South East at 104 respondents, London at 92, the South West at 81, and the North West at 76. 56% of respondents report turnover between £100,000 and £500,000. The typical respondent turns over approximately £300,000, and 5.3% exceed £1 million. It's worth being clear about what this data can and can't do. The barometer is a self-reported survey of clinic owners who chose to respond. It is not a random sample of all UK clinics, and respondents skew towards engaged, digitally active owners. The data is useful for benchmarking and identifying patterns. It should not be treated as definitive population statistics. Throughout this book, correlation has been flagged as correlation and interpretation labelled as interpretation. Appendix B, key benchmarks with target bands. This appendix is a benchmark table which is easier to scan than to listen to. The same table is available to print out in the written version of this book at hmdg.co.uk/clinic-economics if you'd rather have it in front of you than committed to memory. This is the one-page summary worth printing and putting on the wall. For each metric, the barometer benchmark, the red zone below target, the green target band, and the red zone above target where relevant. Utilization, the average is 72.3%. Below 65% is red, 70 to 80% is the green target, above 80% is red again. Rebooking rate, the physiotherapy average is 73.3%. Below 65% is red. Above 73% is the target. Sessions per episode, the median is 5.0. Below 4 is red. 5 to 6 is the target. DNA rate with reminders in place. The benchmark is 6.3%. Above 10% is red. Below 6.5% is the target. CAC, the median is £25, above £40 is red, below £25 is the target. Revenue per clinician, £70,871 with high admin support, below £57,000 is red, above £70,000 is the target. Revenue per patient, roughly £315 to £330, below £250 is red, above £315 is the target. Wait time. The median is 2 days. Above 7 days is red, 2 to 5 days is the target. Initial and follow-up fees at £74 and £63 median respectively. The target is to sit at or above your regional median for each. Check your numbers against these bands monthly. If you're in the red on more than 2 metrics, something structural needs attention. Start with whatever is furthest from target. Utilization and DNA rate map back to Chapter 2. Rebooking rate maps to Chapters 2 and 3. Sessions per episode maps to Chapter 3. CAC maps to Chapter 5. Revenue per clinician maps to Chapters 2, 10 and 11. Revenue per patient and pricing map to Chapters 3 and 4. Wait time maps to Chapters 2 and 4. Appendix C, how to calculate each metric. This appendix is a step-by-step reference for your practice management software with menu paths for 4 different systems, so it's naturally better suited to reading than listening. The full appendix, with all the menu paths written out, is available in the written version of this book at hmdg.ceo.uk/clinic-economics. What follows is the audio version covering the same ground. This appendix explains where to find each of the 10 numbers in the 4 most common UK physiotherapy practice management systems, Clinico, Jane, TM3 and Power Diary, with a spreadsheet fallback that works for everyone. Utilization percentage is booked appointment slots divided by total available slots times 100. In Clinico, check reports, then practitioner daily summary and export weekly to calculate the percentage. In Jane, reports, then schedule, then practitioner utilization gives the percentage directly. In TM3, use management information, then clinic utilization report, selecting your date range and practitioner. In Power Diary, use reports, then appointment reports, then utilization. As a spreadsheet fallback, count booked slots per day, count total available slots per day, and divide. Wait time is the number of days between today and your next available new patient slot. Across all systems, this is usually a manual check. Look at your diary and log the gap daily or weekly. New patient bookings per week is the count of initial appointments booked that week. In Clinico, use reports, then appointment types, filtering by the initial appointment type. In Jane, filter appointments by type and date. In TM3, use the new patient report under management information. In Power Diary, filter appointment reports by type, or simply tally from your diary weekly. Booking conversion rate is bookings made divided by inquiries received times 100. No system tracks this automatically. You need an intake process. Add "How did you hear about us?" to your intake form, log every inquiry in a simple spreadsheet, and compare inquiries to bookings weekly. Rebooking rate is patients who attend a follow-up divided by patients seen times 100. In Clinico, check reports, then patient retention if available on your plan, or calculate manually. In Jane, use reports, then patient reports, then retention. In TM3, use the patient retention report under management information, which can filter by practitioner. In Power Diary, use reports, then patient flow. As a fallback, track patients seen and patients who rebooked per clinician per month and divide. Sessions per episode is total sessions delivered divided by total unique patient episodes. This is the hardest metric to pull automatically since most systems don't define episode natively. The practical approach is to pick a cohort of patients whose first appointment fell in a given month, count their sessions until discharge or 90 days of inactivity, and divide total sessions by number of patients. As a fallback, sample 20 to 30 patients a month and average their session count. DNA and cancellation rate is DN as plus late cancellations divided by total booked appointments times 100. In Clinico, check reports, then cancellation reasons. In Jane, filter appointments by status. In TM3, the DNA report under management information gives the percentage directly. In Power Diary, filter appointment reports by status. As a fallback, count DNAs and late cancellations weekly and divide by total booked. Revenue per patient is sessions per episode multiplied by your blended average fee. If your average episode is 5.0 sessions and your blended fee is £65, revenue per patient is £325. Your blended fee is the initial fee times the proportion of initials plus the follow-up fee times the proportion of follow-ups for a mix of roughly 20% initials and 80% follow-ups at £74 and £63. That works out to about £65.20. CAC is total marketing spend divided by new patients acquired. No system calculates this automatically. Take your marketing spend from your accounting software or ad platforms and your new patient count from the bookings metric above and divide monthly. Revenue per clinician is total clinic revenue divided by full-time equivalent clinicians. Take total revenue for the period from your accounting software and divide by FTE, not headcount. A clinician working 3 days a week counts as 0.6 FTE.